First contact. Dr. Zixlar stood before the gleaming medical console, his four eyes blinking in rapid succession as he processed the latest test results. The soft, bioluminescent glow of his pale blue skin cast a gentle light over the pristine laboratory. With a satisfied chirp, he tapped a command into the holographic interface, sending the data to the Central Medical Archives of Thylox Prime. As the most renowned physician on his homeworld, Dr. Zixlar had dedicated his life to unraveling the mysteries of xenobiology. He had studied countless species from across the galaxy, each with its own fascinating adaptations and biological quirks. Yet, for all his knowledge and experience, nothing could have prepared him for the day when humanity would come knocking at the doorstep of the Thyloxian civilization. The alert chime of his personal communicator pulled Zixlar from his musings. "Dr. Zixlar, your presence is required in the Grand Council chamber immediately," came the urgent voice of his assistant. "The human diplomatic mission has arrived." Zixlar felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension ripple through his gelatinous body. He had, of course, studied the preliminary data on human physiology that had been shared through interstellar channels. But to actually meet these bizarre creatures in person, it was both thrilling and terrifying. As he made his way through the winding, organic corridors of the medical complex, Zixlar couldn't help but ponder the peculiarities of human biology. How could a species survive, let alone thrive, with only two eyes? And their rigid, calcium-based endoskeletons seemed like a recipe for disaster. Yet somehow, these strange beings had not only survived, but had managed to spread across their solar system and beyond. The Grand Council chamber was abuzz with activity when Zixlar arrived. The circular room, with its high domed ceiling adorned with bioluminescent murals depicting the history of Thylox Prime, was filled to capacity. Council members from all 7 continents of their world floated in their hoverpods, their tentacles waving in animated discussion. At the center of it all stood the human delegation. Zixlar's 4 eyes widened as he took in the sight. There were 5 of them, each as alien as the last. They stood upright on 2 legs, their bodies covered in strange, colorful fabrics. Their faces were flat, with protruding noses and small, recessed eyes. And atop their heads was that hair. Zixlar had read about it, but seeing it in person was something else entirely. The lead human, a tall figure with dark skin and close-cropped black hair, stepped forward. "Greetings, esteemed members of the Thyloxian Grand Council," he said, his words translated by a small device attached to his collar. "I am Ambassador Marcus Chen of Earth. We come in peace and friendship, seeking to establish diplomatic relations between our worlds." The Grand Counselor, a venerable Thyloxian with deep purple skin, extended a welcoming tentacle. "We are honored by your presence, Ambassador Chen. Thylox Prime welcomes you and your delegation with open." The counselor's words were cut short by a sudden commotion. One of the human delegates, a shorter female with fiery red hair, had collapsed to the floor, her body convulsing violently. "Medical emergency," shouted one of the other humans, kneeling beside his fallen comrade. Without hesitation, Dr. Zixlar surged forward, his hoverpod carrying him swiftly to the stricken human side. His medical training kicked in automatically, even as his mind raced to recall everything he knew about human physiology. "What happened?" he asked, his translator struggling to keep up with his rapid chirps and clicks. The kneeling human, a male with graying hair at his temples, looked up with panicked eyes. "She just started shaking and fell. I think it might be an allergic reaction, but I'm not sure to what." Zixlar's tentacles hovered over the convulsing human, his biosensors working overtime to analyze her condition. The readings were unlike anything he had ever seen before. Her internal temperature was skyrocketing, her neural activity was off the charts, and her respiratory system seemed to be in danger of shutting down entirely. "We need to get her to the medical bay immediately," Zixlar announced. With a swift command to his hoverpod, he created a stable force field around the human, lifting her gently off the floor. As they raced through the corridors of the council building, Zixlar's mind whirled with possibilities. What could have caused such a severe reaction? Was it something in the Xyloxian atmosphere? A microbial contaminant? Or perhaps an interaction with some unknown element in their environment? In the medical bay, Zixlar and his team worked feverishly to stabilize the human patient. Their standard treatments seemed to have little effect, and with each passing moment, her condition grew more critical. "Doctor," one of his assistants chirped urgently, "her cellular structure is beginning to break down. We're losing her." Zixlar felt a wave of frustration wash over him. He had never lost a patient before, and he wasn't about to start now, especially not with a member of a newly contacted species. The diplomatic ramifications alone would be catastrophic. Suddenly, an idea struck him. It was risky, completely untested, but it might be their only chance. "Prepare a nanite infusion," he ordered, his tentacles flying over the medical console. "We'll use our own cellular repair technology to stabilize her system." His assistants looked at him in shock. "But sir," one protested, "we have no idea how the nanites will interact with human biology." "We have no choice," Zixlar replied firmly. "It's this or we lose her." As the nanites were prepared, Ambassador Chen burst into the medical bay, his face a mask of concern. "How is she? Can you help her?" Zixlar turned to face the human diplomat, his four eyes blinking in rapid succession as he chose his words carefully. "Ambassador, we're doing everything we can. But I must be honest, your colleague's condition is critical, and we're venturing into unknown territory. I believe I have a solution, but it comes with significant risks." Chen's expression hardened. "What kind of risks?" "We want to use our nanite technology to repair the cellular damage," Zixlar explained quickly. "It's highly effective for Xyloxian physiology, but we've never tested it on humans. There's a chance it could save her life, or it could make things worse." The ambassador closed his eyes for a moment, his face a study in conflicting emotions. When he opened them again, there was a steely determination in his gaze. "Do it," he said firmly. "Sarah knew the risks when she signed up for this mission. She'd want you to try everything possible." With a nod, Zixlar turned back to his patient. The nanite solution was ready, glowing with a soft, silvery light. With a silent prayer to whatever cosmic forces might be listening, he administered the infusion. For several tense moments, nothing seemed to happen. The human's vital signs continued to fluctuate wildly, her body still racked with convulsions. Zixlar and his team watched the monitors anxiously, looking for any sign of improvement. And then, almost imperceptibly at first, things began to change. The human's neural activity started to stabilize. Her temperature began to drop. The cellular degradation slowed, then stopped altogether. "It's working," Zixlar exclaimed, his tentacles waving in excitement. "The nanites are adapting to her biology." Over the next hour, they watched in amazement as the human's condition steadily improved. The nanites, designed to repair Xyloxian cells, had somehow managed to interface with human biology, repairing damage and restoring balance to her systems. Finally, the human, Sarah, Zixlar reminded himself, opened her eyes. She looked around in confusion, her gaze finally settling on the alien doctor hovering above her. What happened?" she asked weakly. Ambassador Chen stepped forward, relief evident on his face. "You had some kind of allergic reaction, Sarah, but you're going to be okay. This is Dr. Zixlar. He saved your life." Sarah's eyes widened as she took in the alien physician's appearance. Then, to everyone's surprise, she smiled. "Thank you, doctor," she said sincerely. "I guess I owe you one." Zixlar felt a warm glow of satisfaction spread through his gelatinous form. "You owe me nothing," he replied. "This is why I became a doctor, to help others, no matter their species." As the humans gathered around their recovering colleague, Zixlar found himself reflecting on the events of the day. He had faced a challenge unlike any in his long career, and in doing so, had not only saved the life, but had also made a groundbreaking discovery about the compatibility of diloxian and human biology. The implications were staggering. If their medical technologies could be adapted to work on humans, and vice versa, the potential for advancing both species' medical knowledge was enormous. It was a door opening to a whole new realm of possibilities. As he watched the human delegation, their relief and joy palpable even to his alien senses, Dr. Zixler made a decision. He would petition the Grand Council to allow him to join the human expedition when they returned to their home system. There was so much to learn, so many mysteries to unravel. The human puzzle. In the days following the near-disastrous first contact, Dr. Zixler found himself utterly consumed by the puzzle that was human physiology. The medical bay of the Zyloxian Grand Council complex had been temporarily converted into an impromptu xenobiology research center, with the full cooperation of the human delegation. Sarah Reynolds, the diplomat who had suffered the severe allergic reaction, had become Zixler's primary subject of study. Her willingness to undergo numerous tests and scans, despite her recent ordeal, both impressed and baffled the alien physician. "You know, Doc," Sarah said one day as Zixler's tentacles manipulated a complex array of holographic readouts, "on Earth, we have a saying. Curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought it back." Zixler's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession, a sign of confusion. "I'm afraid I don't understand the reference, Sarah. What is a cat, and how does its death relate to curiosity?" Sarah laughed, a sound that still startled Zixler with its strangeness. "It's just an expression. It means that being too curious can sometimes get you into trouble, but the knowledge you gain might be worth it." The alien doctor considered this for a moment. An intriguing concept. "Though I must say, the more I learn about humans, the more questions I have. Your species seems to be a walking contradiction." "How so?" Sarah asked, genuinely curious. Zixler's tentacles waved in an approximation of a human shrug. "Well, take your skeletal structure, for instance. It provides excellent support and protection, but it's also surprisingly fragile. A fall from a relatively short height can cause significant damage, and yet you've managed to not only survive but thrive on a planet with such high gravity." He paused, manipulating the holographic display to show a detailed scan of Sarah's cardiovascular system. "Then there's your circulatory system. It's remarkably efficient, but also vulnerable to blockages and ruptures. The fact that your species hasn't succumbed to widespread cardiovascular failure is, quite frankly, astonishing." Sarah nodded, a wry smile on her face. "We're tougher than we look, Doc. Humans have a knack for surviving against the odds." This was a sentiment Zixler had heard repeated often over the past few days, not just from Sarah, but from the other members of the human delegation as well. It was a trait that both fascinated and perplexed him. As he continued his examination, Zixler's thoughts drifted to the medical history data the humans had shared. The sheer variety of environments humans had adapted to on their home planet was staggering. From scorching deserts to frozen tundras, from oxygen-rich lowlands to the thin air of high mountains, humans had found ways to survive and thrive. But what truly captured Zixler's imagination was the history of human medical advancements, the progression from crude, invasive surgeries to sophisticated, minimally invasive procedures. From trial and error pharmaceuticals to precisely targeted gene therapies. From superstition-based treatments to evidence-based medicine, it was a testament to human ingenuity and determination. "Sarah," Zixler said, his voice filled with a mix of awe and confusion, "I've been studying the medical history your people provided. Is it true that early in your development, humans would deliberately introduce weakened pathogens into their bodies to build immunity?" Sarah nodded. "You mean vaccines? Yeah, we still use them, although the technology has advanced quite a bit since then." Zixler's body rippled with amazement. Remarkable. The idea of intentionally exposing oneself to a potential threat in order to build defenses. It's so counterintuitive and yet brilliantly effective. As the days passed, Zixlar's fascination with human medical practices only grew. He pored over accounts of battlefield medicine, marveling at the human ability to improvise treatments under the most dire circumstances. He studied the development of prosthetics, artificial organs, and neural interfaces, each advancement pushing the boundaries of what was possible. One evening, as Zixlar was compiling his latest findings, Ambassador Chen paid a visit to the medical bay. "Dr. Zixlar," the ambassador greeted warmly, "I hope I'm not interrupting." The alien physician's skin flickered with patterns of welcome. "Not at all, Ambassador. How may I assist you?" Chen's expression grew serious. "I've come to discuss a rather important matter. Our mission here is nearing its end, and we'll soon be returning to Earth. However, given the incident during our arrival and the subsequent breakthroughs in cross-species medical understanding, my superiors have expressed an interest in continuing this exchange of knowledge." Zixlar felt a surge of excitement course through his gelatinous form. "Are you proposing what I think you are, Ambassador?" The human diplomat nodded. "We would like to extend an invitation for a Xyloxian medical expert to accompany us back to Earth, to continue this research and to act as a liaison between our medical communities. Naturally, you were our first choice, Dr. Zixlar." For a moment, Zixlar was speechless. The opportunity to visit the human homeworld, to study their medical practices firsthand, was beyond his wildest dreams. "And yet, Ambassador, I'm deeply honored by the invitation," he began carefully. "But I must confess, I have some concerns. From what I've learned of your world, it seems to be a rather hazardous environment, especially for a species like mine." Chen's face broke into a reassuring smile. "I understand your apprehension, Doctor. Earth can indeed be challenging. But I assure you, we've made extensive preparations to ensure your safety and comfort. Our top xenobiologists and environmental engineers have been working around the clock to create a suitable living and working space for you." Zixlar considered this for a moment. The potential dangers were not insignificant, but the opportunity for discovery, for advancing medical knowledge for both their species, was too great to ignore. "In that case, Ambassador," he said, his skin glowing with excitement, "I would be honored to accept your invitation." The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. Zixlar worked tirelessly to organize his research, prepare the necessary equipment, and brief his Xyloxian colleagues on the continued care of the human delegation. All the while, his mind raced with questions about what he might discover on Earth. As the day of departure approached, Sarah visited him in the medical bay one last time. "Ready for your big adventure, Doc?" she asked with a grin. Zixlar's skin rippled with a mix of excitement and nervousness. "As ready as I'll ever be, I suppose. I must admit, I'm both thrilled and terrified at the prospect of visiting your world." Sarah's expression softened. "I know it must seem daunting, but remember what you told me when I woke up after my allergic reaction, about helping others, no matter their species. Well, that works both ways. We'll be there to help you too, every step of the way." Her words touched Zixlar deeply. "Thank you, Sarah. Your kindness and resilience have been a constant source of inspiration. I look forward to learning more about your people and your world." As he made his final preparations, Zixlar reflected on the journey ahead. He was about to embark on the greatest adventure of his life, venturing into the unknown depths of human medical science. There would be challenges, certainly, perhaps even dangers. But there would also be discovery, innovation, and the potential to forge a deeper understanding between their two species. With a mixture of trepidation and excitement, Dr. Zixlar prepared to leave his familiar world behind. The human puzzle awaited, and he was determined to solve it, one piece at a time. Journey to the Deathworld. The human starship, Horizon, hung in orbit around Silox Prime, its sleek design a stark contrast to the organic, flowing architecture of the Siloxian vessels. Dr. Zixlar gazed at it through the viewport of the shuttle, his four eyes widening in a mixture of awe and apprehension. This metal construct would be his home for the next several weeks as they journeyed to the human homeworld. "Impressive, isn't she?" Ambassador Chen said, noticing Zixlar's fascination. "The Horizon is our latest deep space vessel, equipped with artificial gravity, advanced life support systems, and enough redundancies to make even the most paranoid engineer happy." Zixlar's skin rippled in what the humans had come to recognize as a smile. "It is indeed impressive, Ambassador. Though I must admit, the idea of traveling in a metal shell through the vacuum of space is disconcerting." Sarah Reynolds, who had insisted on accompanying Zixlar as his liaison and assistant, chuckled. "Don't worry, Doc. Humans have been doing this for centuries. It's practically second nature to us now." As they docked with the Horizon, Zixlar couldn't help but marvel at the ingenuity of human engineering. The airlock cycled, equalizing pressure and atmosphere, and they stepped into the ship proper. Immediately, Zixlar felt the difference. The artificial gravity was slightly less than what he was accustomed to on Silox Prime, and the air had a crisp, recycled quality to it. "Welcome aboard, Dr. Zixlar," a new voice said. A tall, lean human with close-cropped gray hair stepped forward. "I'm Captain Ilara Voss. On behalf of the crew, we're honored to have you join us on this historic journey." Zixlar extended a tentacle in greeting, mimicking the human handshake he had learned. "The honor is mine, Captain Voss. I look forward to learning much during our voyage." As they made their way through the ship, Zixlar was introduced to key members of the crew. Dr. Aiden Nakamura, the ship's chief medical officer, seemed particularly excited to meet him. "I've read all your preliminary reports on Siloxian physiology," Dr. Nakamura gushed. "The way your species can regenerate complex organs is fascinating. I have so many questions." Zixlar found himself warming to the human doctor's enthusiasm. "And I have many questions about human medicine as well, Dr. Nakamura. Perhaps we can arrange some time to exchange knowledge during our journey." The first few days aboard the Horizon were a whirlwind of activity and adaptation for Zixlar. The humans had gone to great lengths to accommodate his unique biology, creating a special living quarters with higher humidity and softer, more organic surfaces. Yet there were still countless small challenges to overcome. The ship's recycled air, while perfectly breathable, lacked the complex mixture of spores and microorganisms that Siloxians were accustomed to. Zixlar found himself needing to supplement his diet with specially prepared nutrient solutions. The constant, low-level hum of the ship's engines, imperceptible to human ears, resonated with his sensitive skin in a way that was mildly irritating until he acclimated. But for every challenge, there were moments of wonder and discovery. Zixlar spent hours in the ship's observation deck, marveling at the vast expanse of space. The concept of faster-than-light travel, while theoretically understood by Siloxian scientists, had never been achieved by his species. Watching the stars blur and shift as the Horizon engaged its FTL drive was a sight Zixlar knew he would never forget. As the days passed, Zixlar fell into a routine. Mornings were spent in the medical bay with Dr. Nakamura, exchanging knowledge and conducting small experiments. Afternoons often found him in deep discussion with various crew members, learning about human culture, history, and technology. In the evenings, he would retire to his quarters to compile his notes and prepare questions for the next day. It was during one of these evening sessions, about halfway through their journey, that Sarah came to visit him. "How are you holding up, Doc?" she asked, settling into a chair that had been specially designed to accommodate human posture. Zixlar's skin flickered with patterns of contentment. "Quite well, thank you, Sarah. This journey has been more enlightening than I could have ever imagined. Though I must admit, I'm growing increasingly curious, and perhaps a bit anxious, about what awaits us on Earth." Sarah nodded understandingly. "That's natural. Earth can be a bit overwhelming, even for humans sometimes, but I promise we'll ease you into it." She paused, seeming to consider her next words carefully. "There is something I wanted to talk to you about, though. You remember how I had that allergic reaction on Silox Prime? Zixlar's body tensed slightly at the memory. Of course, it was a rather alarming incident. Well, Sarah continued, our medical team has been analyzing the data from that event, combined with what we've learned about Siloxian biology. They think they've identified the compound that caused the reaction. And, well, it turns out it's something quite common on Earth. Zixlar felt a ripple of concern pass through him. How common? Sarah sighed. Very. It's a protein found in a lot of our plant life. The good news is, now that we know about it, we can take precautions. But it does mean that when we arrive on Earth, you'll need to be extremely careful about your exposure to the local environment. The implications of this information slowly sank in for Zixlar. Earth, he realized, would be far more dangerous for him than he had initially anticipated. The very air could be filled with particles that might prove harmful to his alien biology. Yet, strangely, Zixlar found that this knowledge didn't diminish his excitement about the journey. If anything, it heightened his respect for the humans. To evolve and thrive in an environment filled with potential toxins and hazards, it was a testament to their species' resilience. Thank you for telling me this, Sarah, he said finally. It's valuable information, and it will help me prepare better for our arrival. But I want you to know, it doesn't change my commitment to this mission. The potential for medical breakthroughs, for advancing both our species' understanding, is too great to ignore. Sarah smiled, relief evident on her face. I'm glad to hear that, Doc. And don't worry, we'll have your back. The whole team is committed to making this work. As Sarah left, Zixlar turned his attention back to his notes, but his mind was racing with new questions and possibilities. Earth, it seemed, would be even more of a death world than he had imagined. But it was also a world that had produced a species capable of reaching the stars, of extending a hand in friendship to alien life. The challenge ahead was daunting, but Zixlar found himself looking forward to it with a mixture of scientific curiosity and growing respect for his human companions. Whatever dangers Earth might hold, he would face them with the same spirit of discovery and cooperation that had brought him this far. As the Horizon continued its journey through the stars, Dr. Zixlar prepared himself for the greatest adventure of his life. The Deathworld awaited, with all its perils and possibilities, and he was determined to meet it head-on. Trial by fire. The first glimpse of Earth took Dr. Zixlar's breath away. From the observation deck of the Horizon, he watched as the blue marble grew larger, its swirling white clouds and vast oceans unlike anything he had ever seen. The sheer diversity of the planet's ecosystems was staggering, from the lush green of rainforests to the stark white of polar ice caps, from sprawling deserts to towering mountain ranges. It's beautiful, Zixlar breathed, his 4 eyes wide with wonder. Sarah, standing beside him, nodded with a proud smile. Wait until you see it up close. As the Horizon began its descent towards the United Earth Space Agency's primary landing facility, located in what the humans call the Australian outback, Zixlar felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The specially designed environment suit he wore felt bulky and restrictive, but he knew it was necessary for his survival on this alien world. The landing was smooth, a testament to human engineering and the skill of the Horizon's crew. As the airlock cycled and the ramp extended, Zixlar took his first tentative steps onto Earth's soil. The heat hit him first, even through his protective suit. The sun blazed overhead in a cloudless sky, its intensity far greater than anything on Silox Prime. The air, filtered through his suit's systems, felt dry and thin. "Welcome to Earth, Doc," Sarah said, her voice tinged with excitement. "What do you think?" Zixlar's skin rippled with a complex mix of emotions. "It's overwhelming," he admitted. "The gravity, the heat, the light, everything is so intense." Dr. Nakamura, who had accompanied them on the landing, nodded understandingly. "It'll take some time to adjust. We'll start with short exposure periods and gradually increase them as you acclimate." The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Zixlar split his time between the controlled environment of the research facility and carefully monitored excursions into the surrounding landscape. Each venture outside was a new adventure, filled with wonders and potential dangers. It was during one of these excursions, about a week into their stay, that disaster struck. They were exploring a nearby canyon, studying the unique flora that had adapted to the harsh, arid environment. Zixlar was fascinated by the resilience of Earth's plant life, marveling at how it could thrive in conditions that seemed so inhospitable. Suddenly, the ground beneath them began to tremble. Small pebbles skittered down the canyon walls as the vibrations intensified. "Earthquake," shouted one of the human researchers. "We need to get to open ground now." As the team began to scramble towards safety, a loud crack echoed through the canyon. Zixlar looked up just in time to see a massive boulder breaking free from the cliff face above them, hurtling towards their position. Time seemed to slow down. Zixlar saw the boulder's trajectory, realized it was headed straight for Sarah, who was too focused on helping another researcher to notice the danger. Without thinking, Zixlar launched himself forward. His tentacles wrapped around Sarah, pulling her out of the boulder's path. They tumbled to the ground as the massive rock crashed where she had been standing just moments before. But in his desperate move to save Sarah, Zixlar had compromised his own safety. His environment suit had torn on the rough ground, exposing him directly to Earth's atmosphere. The effect was immediate and severe. Zixlar felt a burning sensation spread across his exposed skin. His respiratory system, suddenly flooded with unfamiliar particles, began to spasm. His vision blurred as his eyes struggled to adjust to the unfiltered sunlight. "Zixlar." Sarah's panicked voice seemed to come from very far away. "Oh God, his suit's been breached. We need emergency evac now." The world spun around Zixlar as he fought to remain conscious. He was vaguely aware of being lifted, of urgent voices shouting medical jargon he couldn't quite follow. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was Sarah's face, etched with worry and gratitude. When Zixlar regained consciousness, he found himself in the sterile environment of the research facility's medical bay. The familiar face of Dr. Nakamura swam into view. "Welcome back, Dr. Zixlar," Nakamura said, relief evident in his voice. "You gave us quite a scare." Zixlar tried to speak, but his voice came out as a weak rasp. Nakamura quickly provided him with a nutrient solution, which helped soothe his irritated tissues. "What happened?" Zixlar managed to ask. "You saved Sarah's life," Nakamura explained. "But in doing so, you were exposed to our atmosphere. The combination of our air composition, bacteria, and solar radiation. Well, it was pretty rough on your system." As Zixlar's strength slowly returned, he learned the full extent of what had transpired. His heroic act had saved Sarah from certain death, but it had also pushed his alien physiology to its limits. The medical team had worked tirelessly to stabilize him, using a combination of Thyloxian healing techniques and human medical technology. "Your cellular regeneration abilities are remarkable," Dr. Nakamura commented as he reviewed Zixlar's latest test results. "They've been working overtime to repair the damage. But I have to say, I'm amazed at how quickly you're recovering." Zixlar's skin flickered with a weak approximation of a smile. "We Xyloxians are more resilient than we look, Doctor. Though I must admit, I've gained a new appreciation for how challenging your world can be." Over the next few days, as Zixlar continued to recover, he received a steady stream of visitors. The research team, the Horizons crew, and even officials from the United Earth government came to express their gratitude and admiration for his selfless act. But the visit that meant the most to him was from Sarah. She entered his room hesitantly, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "Doc," she said softly, "I don't even know how to begin to thank you. You saved my life." Zixlar's skin rippled with warmth. "There's no need to thank me, Sarah. You've been a friend and guide to me since we met. I couldn't stand by and watch you come to harm." Sarah smiled, wiping away a tear. You know, when we first met, I never imagined an alien would end up being one of the bravest individuals I've ever known. You've shown us all what it truly means to bridge the gap between our species." As Sarah spoke, Zixlar realized something profound. His act of selflessness hadn't just saved a life. It had forged a deeper connection between their two species. In that moment of crisis, differences in biology and culture had fallen away, leaving only the universal desire to protect one another. Despite the dangers he had faced, despite the physical toll it had taken on him, Zixlar found himself more committed than ever to his mission on Earth. There was still so much to learn, so much potential for both their species to grow and evolve together. As he lay there, recovering in a medical bay far from his homeworld, surrounded by the care and gratitude of his human companions, Dr. Zixlar knew that he had found something precious. Not just scientific knowledge or medical breakthroughs, but a true connection with a species that, for all its differences, shared the same fundamental values of compassion, curiosity, and courage. The journey ahead would undoubtedly hold more challenges, more moments of danger and discovery. But Zixlar was ready to face them, bolstered by the strength of the bonds he had formed and the lessons he had learned on this magnificent, terrifying death world called Earth. A new perspective. In the weeks following the canyon incident, Dr. Zixlar's recovery became a symbol of resilience and interspecies cooperation. His willingness to risk his life to save Sarah had not only earned him the respect and admiration of the human scientific community, but had also captured the imagination of the general public. News of the alien doctor's heroic act had spread rapidly, sparking a renewed interest in the potential of human-Thyloxian relations. As Zixlar regained his strength, he found himself at the center of an unprecedented collaborative effort. Scientists and medical professionals from both species worked tirelessly, combining their knowledge and technologies to develop new treatments and protective measures that would allow Xyloxians to better withstand Earth's challenging environment. One morning, as Zixlar was reviewing the latest research data in his specially designed quarters, he received an unexpected visitor. Dr. Elena Rossi, the lead cynobiologist of the United Earth Science Division, entered with an air of barely contained excitement. "Dr. Zixlar," she greeted warmly, "I hope I'm not interrupting, but I have some news that I believe you'll find quite interesting." Zixlar's skin rippled with curiosity. "Not at all, Dr. Rossi. Please, what have you discovered?" Elena's eyes sparkled as she activated a holographic display. "We've been analyzing the data from your recovery process, cross-referencing it with what we know about Thyloxian biology and our own adaptive immune responses. What we found is, well, it's revolutionary." The display showed a complex molecular structure that Zixlar didn't immediately recognize. "What am I looking at?" he asked, his four eyes focusing intently on the image. "This," Elena explained, "is a new type of synthetic antibody we've developed. It combines elements of both human and Thyloxian immune responses. In simulations, it's shown remarkable effectiveness in neutralizing a wide range of pathogens and environmental toxins that are harmful to both our species." Zixlar's body pulsed with excitement as he grasped the implications. "Are you saying that this could potentially allow Xyloxians to survive on Earth without the need for extensive protective measures?" Elena nodded, her smile widening. "Not just survive, Dr. Zixlar. Thrive. And the applications go far beyond that. This could be the key to allowing both our species to explore and colonize worlds that were previously thought to be too hostile." As they delved deeper into the research, Zixlar felt a sense of awe at the potential of this discovery. It wasn't just a medical breakthrough. It was a gateway to a future where humans and Thyloxians could work side by side, exploring the cosmos and facing its challenges together. Over the next few days, Zixlar threw himself into the work with renewed vigor. He collaborated closely with the human medical team, offering insights into Thyloxian physiology that helped refine and improve the synthetic antibody. The process was not without its challenges. There were setbacks and moments of frustration. But the spirit of cooperation never wavered. It was during one of these intense research sessions that Sarah approached Zixlar with an unusual request. "Doc," she said, a hint of nervousness in her voice, "I know you're busy with all this groundbreaking stuff, but I was wondering if you'd be willing to do something a bit different." Zixlar's skin flickered with curiosity. "Of course, Sarah. What did you have in mind?" Sarah took a deep breath. "Well, there's a school not far from here. The kids have been learning about our mission and your visit to Earth. They're fascinated by you, and they've been asking if they could meet an actual alien. I thought maybe, if you're up for it, we could arrange a video call." For a moment, Zixlar was taken aback. The idea of interacting with human children, with their natural curiosity and openness, both excited and intimidated him. But as he considered the potential impact of such an encounter, he realized its importance. "I would be honored," he said finally, his skin glowing with warmth. The video call, held a few days later, turned out to be one of the most rewarding experiences of Zixlar's time on Earth. The children's questions ranged from the scientifically astute to the charmingly naive, covering everything from the intricacies of Xyloxian biology to whether he had a favorite Earth food yet. One young girl's question, in particular, stuck with Zixlar long after the call ended. "Dr. Zixlar," she had asked, her eyes wide with wonder, "what's the biggest difference between your world and ours?" Zixlar had paused, considering his answer carefully. "The biggest difference," he said finally, "is not in the air we breathe or the ground we walk on. It's in the challenges we face. Your world, to me, seemed impossibly dangerous at first, but I've learned that it's those very challenges that have shaped your species, made you adaptable and resilient in ways that continue to amaze me." As the weeks turned into months, the fruits of the joint human-Xyloxian research began to show promising results. The synthetic antibody, refined and improved through countless iterations, was ready for its first real-world trial. On a clear, crisp morning, Zixlar stood at the entrance to the research facility, facing the vast expanse of the Australian outback. He wore no protective suit, no filtering apparatus. At his side stood Sarah, Dr. Nakamura, and a team of anxious but excited scientists. "Are you sure about this?" Sarah asked, concern evident in her voice. "We could start with a shorter exposure time or a more controlled environment." Zixlar's skin rippled with determination. "No, this is how it must be. We've come too far to hesitate now." With a deep breath, his first of unfiltered Earth air since the accident, Zixlar stepped out into the sunlight. The heat washed over him. The dry air filled his respiratory chambers, and the unfiltered light of Earth's sun bathed his sensitive skin. For a tense moment, everyone held their breath. Then, slowly, Zixlar's body began to glow with a soft, pulsating light, a sign of contentment and well-being in Xyloxians. "It's incredible," he breathed, his voice filled with wonder. "I can feel the warmth, the life in the air. It's so different from Xylox Prime, and yet it feels right." The success of the trial marked a turning point not just in Zixlar's mission, but in the relationship between humans and Xyloxians. The barriers that had once seemed insurmountable were crumbling, replaced by a shared vision of a future where both species could learn from and support each other. As Zixlar prepared for his return journey to Xylox Prime, carrying with him the blueprints for the synthetic antibody and countless other medical breakthroughs, he reflected on how far he had come. He had arrived on Earth viewing it as a death world, a place of constant danger and challenge. He was leaving seeing it as a world of incredible diversity, resilience, and potential. In his final address to the United Earth Science Division, Zixlar spoke of the lessons he had learned and the hope he held for the future. "When I first arrived on your world," he said, his voice resonating with emotion, "I saw only the dangers, the harsh sun, the alien atmosphere, the countless potential toxins. But you, humans, taught me to see beyond that. You showed me that it's not the absence of challenges that defines a world, but how a species rises to meet them." He paused, his skin glowing with a rainbow of colors that reflected his complex emotions. In facing the trials of your world together, we have forged something greater than either of our species could have achieved alone. We have proven that the greatest frontiers are not those of space or time, but of understanding and cooperation. As Zixalar boarded the ship that would take him home, he carried with him more than just scientific knowledge. He carried a new perspective on what it meant to be alive in a vast and varied universe. And he knew, with a certainty that resonated through every cell of his being, that this was just the beginning of a grand adventure that would reshape both their worlds. The Deathworld had become a crucible of discovery, a proving ground for the power of curiosity, compassion, and cooperation. And in that crucible, something remarkable had been forged, a bridge between worlds, a promise of a shared future among the stars. As Earth receded in the viewport, growing smaller but never diminishing in importance, Dr. Zixalar looked forward to the day when he would return. For he knew now that this beautiful, challenging, awe-inspiring world was not just humanity's home. It was a second home for him too, and for all those who dared to reach across the gulf of space and difference to forge new bonds of friendship and understanding. The journey of discovery, Zixalar realized, was far from over. It was, in fact, just beginning.